You cannot afford to miss a single moment of the next hour. Get ready to have your ideas about sexuality, love, and relationships blown wide open. It's time to get educated, entertained, and enlightened, as well as sexually empowered. You have now tuned into the Tantra Love, Sex, and Intimacy Show. Now, here's your host, Tanja Diamond.
Hello, everybody all around the world. That just excites me so much. Of course, like most things excite me, but being heard all around the world is pretty fun. Kind of like, I don't know, kind of like a rock star or something. Oh, but a radio show host. Wow, check it out. It is fun. So in the studio with me, you've got to every once in a while get a visual of what's going on for me. I've got of course, very handsome Gary, the producer over there, Gary's sexy voice producer.
Hello.
Yeah, see? It's just hot when he talks like that. It's just stunning.
Yeah, it's more like, how are you?
Yeah, exactly. How are you? And then to my other side of here, I'm kind of in the middle of these two gorgeous men, is the newest member of Team Tantra, Josh, who has an equally sexy radio voice. Say hi, Josh.
Hi, Tanja. Nice to see you.
Isn't that? Yeah. Wow. I'm a very, very lucky woman. And, of course, we do have a fabulous guest on today, and her name is Christine, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you what it is that she has done that has got her this spot on the radio, which has written a book we're going to learn all about. Hello, Christine.
Hello, Tanja. How are you today?
Yes, fabulous, excited, and orgasmic, actually.
Ooh, sounds fabulous.
It's hard to beat, isn't it?
It is. I don't know if I have a word better than orgasmic.
There aren't a whole lot more than that. So tell us who you are and what you have written.
So my name is Christine Arylo, and no one ever gets it right the first time. Arylo serves me right for changing my name. I moved to California when I was 33 and changed my name. My relatives thought I went crazy, but I just got sane. But I did choose a name that is hard to pronounce. But anyway, I'm an inspirational catalyst, and I left my corporate job about 3-4 years ago to go on a mission to inspire people to fall madly in love with themselves.
Oh, yeah, we
Nice.
love that.
Well, you have to start with the love that you have for you before you can ever love anyone else. And what I experienced, and I learned this the hard way, and what I kept watching all of the women around me doing was suffering because they just couldn't get the love that they wanted, whether they were, in a relationship or they were looking for Mr. Right. They just couldn't get the love that they were craving.
Yeah.
And I learned it the hard way that, the love that you want starts with the love you have for yourself.
How true is that? And it's so amazing because, we hear that all the time. Well, love yourself. But I think very few people completely understand what that means.
Well, sure. I mean, if you had asked me when I was 30 years old, which was, 8 years ago when my whole life fell apart, hey, Christine, do you love yourself? I would have been, yeah, I love myself. Yeah, I'm great, because I had all this confidence.
Right.
But I didn't even really know what loving myself was. And my wake-up call was when I was 30 years old on the way to my engagement party, and my fiancé at the time and boyfriend of 15 years basically pulled the car over 2 miles from my mother's house and announced he didn't love me and didn't want to marry me, and oh, by the way, he'd been cheating on me.
Wow. Sorry.
Yeah,
That's harsh,
it was harsh, and it was also my own fault because I didn't listen, because I wasn't being real, because I didn't love myself. I had put myself into a relationship that was not a partnership, that wasn't true intimacy, that didn't respect me.
Yeah.
And I didn't know because no one told me, because all the women around me, same thing.
Well, sure. We have 40 million sexless couples in the United States now, and we have all this role modeling that has nothing to do with how to really respect and love ourselves.
No, and like you said, we don't know what it actually means.
Right.
We don't actually know how to do it. So when I think about self-love and loving yourself, and it's interesting, even the word self-love, if you look up self-love, I get one of two things when I say self-love. Either one, it's narcissistic,
right? Which
if you actually look it up on dictionary.com, the definition is narcissism.
Oh, wow.
Which, I about fell out of my chair when I read that. I'm like, I'm petitioning dictionary.com to change the word.
You're so vain.
And, narcissism, not a good thing. I'm totally about that. But that's not what self-love is. And or I also, people go right to the sexual piece of, well, it's masturbation, it's this, it's that. And it's like they just can't even we can't, as a society, hold the energy of what self-love is.
Right. Well, love is one of those nebulous things anyway, because people attach so many different things to it. They're forgetting that it's actually a self, Love is a self state. Being in love, being in a state of love is all about yourself. It has actually not a lot to do with anybody else. You may choose to be in a state of love with somebody else, but unless you can be in a state of love with yourself, then you're just needy.
Absolutely. Well, then you believe, like, was it Jerry Maguire and Tom Cruise in that movie with Renee Zellweger?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you complete me. Oh, my God, those words.
Please help.
If I could erase every single DVD that has those words on it, because it propagates this belief that somebody could, you have to be whole within yourself.
Right.
If someone completed you, it's kind of ridiculous if you think about it. If you needed someone to complete you, if they left, if they died, if you broke up, whatever, are you like 75% of a person?
Well, actually, most people are a little bit hollow, and that's why they're looking for all of these things to fill themselves up, whether it's booze, women, alcohol, love. People don't realize that, love addicts are out there as well. Used to be one, very intimately familiar with it.
Well, it's, and I was too. I mean, it's how I stayed in a relationship for 14 years and 6 months too long. It was a long time, but I call it my the Swiss cheese theory, in that we're all born as like pieces of cheddar, all whole and smooth and pretty. And then, like, what happens through our life, right, things happen and little pockmarks start to kind of show up, and some are deeper than others depending on the trauma. And what we do is we then end up stuffing relationships and, chocolate or,
do we put pimentos in those holes in our
people do, with martinis, a splash of martini with absolutely. And so then when we break up with somebody, when that person is no longer there, you have that heartbreak feeling. You feel like you're going to die. I mean, I thought I was going to die.
I'm familiar with that.
And we think that it's about that other person not being there. But really, it's because we're not there.
Yeah.
And those holes that we're feeling are our own emotional wounding.
Yeah.
That, I grew up in the Midwest, and I don't know about you and where you grew up, but no one talked about emotional healing in the Midwest.
No one talks about emotional healing in most places until Oprah made it cool.
I didn't even know that we had emotions.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Oprah.
Yeah, Oprah. Opening up the conversation.
So tell us more about this book. I mean, this is what does it look like? Is it got exercises in it? It's just a personal journey,
Well, here's the thing I believe. I do believe a couple things. Number one, I believe that we all have very similar experiences. The details are just different. And because we don't share our stories in the vulnerable, intimate, like this is how it was kind of way, we don't learn from each other, and we don't learn across generations.
We're not doing tribe anymore, right?
Yeah, we're individuals. I need no help. I will do it all on my own, and that's how you end up in situations that, like I did, where I was 30 years old and being, broken up with on the way to my engagement party.
Yeah.
And so I wrote, there's a lot of my own stories in there. There's a lot of stories from my girlfriends and clients in there as well. But the thing that I really wanted to do with the book was that I wanted to be able to help women find the answers inside of themselves. And the thing is that I really believe we all have our own answers. Just sometimes we don't know the right question to ask, or we don't even know that something else exists. You just don't know.
Well, you don't know what you don't know. That's really it. If we're taught in school, we have sex education in school, which is, procreational sex, but we don't teach love. We don't teach relationship. We don't teach how to connect to another human being in a spiritual, intimate way that fills both parties without, attaching everything to them.
No, we definitely confuse intimacy, sex, and power.
Yep.
We're all jumbled up. And so, one of the chapters in the book is divided into me, he, and we. And I had to pick a pronoun, so I picked he for the partner because that happens to be my type of partner, but it's interchangeable with whatever sex you need it to be.
Yeah. She, and we.
She, he, we.
He, we, she. He, and we, and we, and she, and he.
Me has to come first. That's the only thing that I have to. And so the first 5 chapters are all about, people say, well, how do you love yourself? How do you choose me before we? And there's 5, it's a lifelong journey. Number one, if you think that you're going to wake up someday and you're just going to have this all figured out, think again. There's no magic self-love pill, I hate to tell you. But
really?
Yeah, not.
Oh, come on. There isn't like some affirmation I could say about 5 times and I'd be there?
No, there's some that you can say about 5,000 times that'll help you get closer.
True enough. Yeah, I've said some of those.
And those are good. I've used that. When I first was in therapy, after my life fell apart, I ended up in therapy, which was really good. Although my mother at the time was like, well, why are you in therapy? You don't tell people your problems. I'm like, That belief is exactly what got me here in the first place.
There's the first lesson.
I know, I'm not going to listen to you anymore, thanks. But your way didn't really work for me. And one of the first things he told me was, I want you to, every day to wake up and look in the mirror and say, I love you, Christine.
Isn't that sweet? I love you, Christine.
I know. I mean, and, it was so hard, Tanya. It was like, You want me to do what? Look in the mirror? That's freaky. Like,
that's corny.
Corny, weird, But I'm like, what else? I mean, I am like, my life is falling apart. What else do I have to lose? Nothing else was working. I will try this.
Right.
So every morning I would get up in my apartment in Chicago, and I would, I lived by myself, thank goodness, with my dog. So she was the only one. I would get up and go to the bathroom first thing and look in the mirror and be, I love you, Christine, I love you. And she'd look at me like,
She didn't make fun of you or anything?
No, she's really good that way.
That's a supportive friend.
Yeah, she's very supportive. And then I would take her for walks, and I would do at least 100s. I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. So here I am, walking the streets of Chicago, people looking at me like I'm a total nutcase.
I love myself.
But you felt good about you. That's what's important.
Well, and it worked. I mean, there's a lot of other things I've done on the journey, but it was fun. I mean, eventually I started singing I Love Myself, and I just...
Nice.
Yeah. Changed it up.
Exactly. I love me. And so I think that was one of the 5 vows I took, that I really had to love myself. Another one of them, and I figured this out probably just a couple weeks after my whole life fell apart, when I was laying in my friend's bed. I left my ex-person and moved into my girlfriend's studio apartment, shared half a bed, half a closet. And I'm laying next to her, and I just had this thought. I'm like, oh, my God, I have been settling. I have been settling for less than my heart and soul desire for years.
Yeah.
Because I believed that that love conquered it all. That if I loved him, I had to have this man in my life.
There's the fairy tale, right? The prince rides off the mountain on his white steed and makes everything perfect. Yeah,
and there are no princes. There's some frogs, definitely.
There's frogs. I think there's some princes. I will say that there are some princes, but the problem is they are learning too.
I'm kind of a prince.
Yeah, Josh is kind of a prince.
Well, I think there's partners, not princes. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think for me, what I really realized is that I wanted a partner for a long time, and I kept trying to make the person I was with that partner.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So you would take somebody and like, here's the deal. Women are programmed to change everything they're with, and I'll tell you why. We're actually, I mean, this is a shock for a lot of women that are hardcore feminists, but we were designed to have babies. Whoa, shocking. But being designed to have babies means that when we're looking at our children, we're seeing potential. We're designed to see the potential out of something that's just a lump of clay that drives us crazy sometimes, that's throwing tantrums, and we're wondering, why are we doing this? Because we know that eventually, with our guidance and love, they will aspire and become the human beings they're supposed to. We actually do that with men as well. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost a given that women are going to aspire to change the men they're with. The problem is we're usually picking men that are so far away from anything we want that it's really ugly.
Well, and there's one of the chapters that I wrote it's all about being honest with yourself. So the vow is to be uncompromising, unwavering honesty with yourself.
And that's tough. How do most people find that? Because we're so good at lying to ourselves.
Well, most people don't like it. But you know what? Tough. Because if you really want to love yourself and you want the relationship that you do, there is no other way. That is how we end up in relationships that we don't really want, because we lie to ourselves. And I get it. I was Tanya and Josh, the total queen of illusion. If there was a lie to be told, I was telling it to myself.
Right, we should have coffee sometime.
Well, it's so much better then, because you create this whole illusionary, life in your head that you just think that you're having, and then, wow, shocker, mm-hmm. Not reality. Mm-hmm. Kind of like, was that when Mr. Rogers had that imaginary land? I think I had my own little imaginary land like Mr. Rogers.
Most people actually do. I don't know if you've ever read Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's awesome, right? Yeah, and he's talking about, if we told the truth, we'd actually find relationships that worked for us.
It's the truth will set you free, right? I mean, mm-hmm. that's the phrase. And one of the biggest lies I know that we tell ourselves as women is that I can fix him. He will change for me.
Well, no, it's just love. If I love him enough, he'll get that he's hurting me and that this isn't working for me. And because he loves me, then he's going to change because, of course, he said he loves me, which means he's going to love me forever.
Yeah, well, I had a call today with a client of mine who's a guy, actually, and he was, it was 17-year relationship, and 2 years of really trying to make it work. They're in couples counseling together. I coach him individually. He's doing all of this stuff, and yet still he's not getting what he needs from this person in the relationship. And I'm like, well, what are you waiting for? What are you actually waiting for? No matter how much you love this person, no matter how much you moan and groan, he's not going to change unless he wants to be different. So don't marry or date or buy a house with or, whatever the potential. You have to be honest with who that person is right now and love them for who they are right now.
Mm-hmm. And that's ourselves as well, right?
Sure. Well, imagine the reason I think we try so hard to fix other people, and this is true for me, and I see it in a lot of my clients as well, is it's a convenient way to not have to deal with ourselves. Much easier to fix, our mother, our kids, our husbands, our wives, whatever, than, there's nothing wrong with me over here. I'm fine.
Useful distractions.
Very. Because, dealing with the truth of who you are and dealing with some of the shadows, the places in yourself that you might not like so much.
I love those places.
I love that you love those places. Not what I hear from most people. Like, that's scary. I don't want to go in there. No.
The dark and frightening secrets
I
of
love
yourself.
Yeah, I love those places.
Where there is shadow, there is light.
Oh.
And there's a saying that goes something like, the bigger the shadow, the brighter the light.
There we go. I believe that if you're on that, you've got a straight line running down the middle, and you've got, either side, you've got, what people consider positive and negative. I don't really consider them that. Light and dark, whatever you want there. You can only have the equal amount of one to the other. So quite frankly, the higher you delve into ecstasy, the lower you can delve into ecstatic bliss on the other side as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that's the thing about really loving yourself, and the benefit of loving yourself is that that's the only way to really find true happiness, and it's the only way to really truly experience love, I believe, on this planet. And the reason that so many of us don't do that is because it is hard. It's not easy.
We don't have a good work ethic anymore. We just want things delivered to us in a pill and just given to us, and it's like that work. I teach people how they have to be their own best lovers too before they can be a great lover to somebody else.
Well, sure, you have to know your own body, your own soul, your own spirit before, and for some people especially who find it hard to even know the difference between themselves and other people.
Yeah. There are those people, right?
Well, there's either tends to be people that have a real hard time with boundaries, and either they give them all away, or they're really super, my world, you're not coming in, steel walls, tends to be one of the two extremes.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's the first vow. When people ask me, well, Christine, how do you fall in love with yourself? You say you can't do it overnight. I go, well, you know what the first step is? Make a promise that you will get to know yourself, that you will look at your holes, that you will heal your holes, that you will get off of living on autopilot and actually be a self-aware person, and that you're going to go into the dark places as well as the light places to really find what's the life you really want.
When I did that practice, I did a 5-year celibacy stint. I spent 5 years in active celibacy, not dating. I dated, ran the sexual energy, did all that stuff, but I spent 5 years in conscious celibacy to explore how I used love and sex and power and what areas of my life were so empty that I was willing to sell out for, and butting up against all of those immensities. It was pretty amazing too. And at one point I actually dated a man, or because I would tell men, yeah, I'll go out with you, but you got to understand I'm celibate right now. Of course, all men mostly take that as a challenge. Oh yes, baby, until you go out with me.
Because I'm the best.
And at the end of the night, I would put out my hand and I'd say, thanks very much. And, they'd try to draw me in for a kiss. And I'd say, no, I put my hands between my lips and theirs. And I'd say, no, remember, I'm celibate. And it was interesting because I think I ran into, I knew the universe would shove right in front of me something that I had always really wanted. So this amazing man showed up in an amazing physical package, an amazing spiritual package, and an amazing everything. And here I was, 2.5 years away from ending celibacy. Here's this.
So did you stay, or did you cut the celibacy short?
No, I stayed the course.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Loving the self was the most important. Commitment to integrity.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other piece of it. You have to. One of the other vows that I talk about is really trusting yourself in the book, and there's a whole chapter on intuition in there. Because what I find is that so many people, we've been, especially women, we've been told, and men too. I mean, I have to coach all my male clients through this as well. We are so cut off from our intuition. We don't trust it. We don't listen to it. We kind of like stuffed and gagged her and put her into a closet and locked the box.
Yep.
And I think, when we're in a relationship that's not working, we always know. But we're just like, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
I have been yes, in my early 20s, I remember those things going, you shouldn't date him. Oh, yeah, no, come on, it's okay. No, really. Okay, no, it's fine. Really, I'm telling you, you're going to wake up in the middle of the night, and there's going to be a knife. No, it's fine. Really, he's a nice man.
And you're not alone. I mean, there's a story in there from a friend of mine. Her name is Jill, and the day she met her husband, well, it wasn't her husband at the time, but her husband, I don't know what I used this. I had to change everyone's names. Dave or something.
To protect the innocent.
Exactly. And so they met at this bar in Chicago, and within minutes of meeting him, her inner voice, her intuition said, don't go out with this man. He will ruin your life.
Mm.
And she didn't listen. They got married, had the first baby, and she knew then that, she should not, he's a narcissist. And so, she basically is having this baby, and he's not even in the hospital. He's off doing whatever he needs to do. And just story after story. I mean, she was having the babies, working full time. He lost his job and was doing nothing. I mean, just all this crazy stuff. And she was afraid to leave, so she got pregnant again. And has 2 wonderful daughters, but it's now 3. They've been divorced for 3 years, and she's just getting her life back.
Yeah,
that's 8 years.
Yeah,
2 great daughters, but she could have 2 great daughters with somebody really great that loved her and that was able to be a partner. But she didn't listen to that voice.
Well, go ahead. Sorry, Josh.
Part of learning to love yourself is learning to listen to your own heart. Each time we fail to listen to our intuition, the consequence gets greater, but each time we learn to listen to that subtle voice and love ourselves more and more, the profit, the gifts that we receive just flood in, and even more. So the ideal life that you're talking about, Christine, is so accessible just when we turn and face our own heart.
Well, and that really is where our intuition comes from. I mean, we're so busy living from our heads and our minds. And sometimes you can even feel it. I know, when I'm stuck in my head, I'm literally living from the neck up. I'm like, what body? What heart? I have feet? Oh, wow, there's feet down there.
Yes. Well, you and I, we're teaching the same things, because I am wandering around saying, hey, get out of your head, people. That's not where you make your decisions. And you don't make them just from your crotch either. You actually have a fully integrated, or supposed to be fully integrated human. And if you're just making from the crotch, just making from the head, or just making them from the heart and not integrating all of it, you're missing some of the pieces there.
Yeah, well, and one of the exercises I wrote in Choosing Me Before We was about how to actually get into your body, just to be able to tap into your intuition, because I find with a lot of the clients I work with, I'm like, okay, well, let's get into your body. And they're like, huh?
You're getting into their body, Christine?
No, they're getting into their body. Not me.
I want to hear about that.
I'm not a Tanja, and not my thing as a teacher.
Ice cubes work help getting people into their bodies.
I bet they do. I bet they do.
I have all sorts of creative ways to get people into their bodies.
You're going to have to send me some of those.
Yeah. We'll talk.
I definitely, I have, and when I started my journey 8 years ago, if someone, said to me, Christine, you have to get in your body, I didn't know how to do that either. Because no one teaches you that. You didn't learn that in grade school.
No, I mean, we're born that way.
We are.
And we unlearn the truth. Mm-hmm. And we weave the story, and we create the illusions, and we're helped. We're programmed, of course. And so it's hard. Part of this is unprogramming all of this stuff that is fed into us at an early age from our parents, from society, and all of that. And I think that, even saying that, I tell people all the time that love isn't the reason to be in a relationship.
No, I am with you. I wrote that in the book as well.
Awesome.
It's what keeps people like, well, I love him. I'm like, okay, listen, you're always going to love. Yeah, oh yeah, well, you love him, great, but he's beating you. But what happens is that we get that it's a whole love thing. People don't fall out of love, okay? They fall out of intimacy, respect, trust, friendship. But when you love somebody, you love them forever.
Yeah. Most of the time, I love a loser. It's really sad, but I do. But I let him go.
For those, I like to say, I love you, and I'd like to continue that from a distance.
Yes, and that's much better than, I hate the phrase of, I love you, but I'm not in love with you.
That's so lame.
It's the biggest cop-out ever. It's such a cop-out because you don't have to own your feelings then.
Yeah. I mean, in love or love, I mean, they're really, right. Yeah, that is lame.
Well, if someone says it to you, what do you do with that? And all it does is it makes the other person feel awful because they've just been told basically that this person who they really want to love them doesn't really love them in that way. And I think people have to be more responsible about, you're not the right partner for me. There's a way to actually, I just wrote an article called Love Him and Leave Him.
Awesome.
The Art of a Good Breakup.
Yeah.
And I think what happens for a lot of us is that we wait till our relationships get to this epic proportion of drama and deceit and devastation.
Well, we try to hate them. We're trying to get out of love with them before we can actually move on.
Yeah, so we can justify, see, look, he's a jerk, or she's, this or that, instead of being like adults and also just from a place of love and saying, I do love you, and I want you to have a great life, and you know what, you're not the right partner for me, and I'm not the right partner for you. And being open to hearing that. I mean, if I'm honest, and I have to be honest here because I've taken the vow of absolute 100% honesty, my partner, ex-person, he told me, I don't know when, somewhere within the year before he dropped the bomb, he said, what, I just don't think we're right for each other. Right.
Well, men generally do tell the truth in the beginning of relationships, and then if they're not heard, they'll try somewhere along the line as well. But they don't try, they're not trying really hard because they don't want to be assholes, essentially.
Well, yeah, he tried 13 years into it, but
yeah, he might have been telling you earlier on. What did you have to say about that, Josh, a second ago? You were on that whole love him and leave him, and you have a relationship you're still friends with.
Yeah, I mean, it's really identifying from my own heart, what do I need? And it's not happening here. It has nothing to do with her. It has nothing to do with the other person. It has to do with, I'm not getting what I need. I need to go search for it. And satisfy myself, convincing the brain that, is it time now? Is it time now? No, there's not enough cards stacked up on the bad side. I'm miserable, I'm not sleeping well, and I'm not eating. Is it time now? Versus listening to the body and having the body advise the brain and say, it's time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I call that love poker.
Love poker.
And Jill, the one who, should have never married the narcissist, well, she played the game of love poker. So it's like, well, what's my hand? Oh, he's not very nice to me. Maybe I should leave him. And then, I love him, so I'll throw in another card.
Right, he was really nice today, so maybe I'll last another week.
Yes, the blip effect. I was talking when I was coaching a client a couple of days ago about a relationship, and I'm like, well, when's the last time you felt super connected to this person? Well, I don't know, 2 years ago.
10, 15.
I would have
20.
jumped in on the hesitation. Right, there's your answer.
There's your answer. And it's like, but sometimes he's like, you can keep going, and I did this in a relationship forever on what I call the blip effect, which is like you somehow you come together, you have a moment of intimacy, you feel connected, and then you kind of go back into homeostasis until something drastic happens, and then you come back together, and you keep waiting for when that short 10% is going to become the 90% of your relationship.
Well, I had a partner that's the loser that that I talk about, and he and I only say that because he actually is. It's not that he's not like this nice man that I just wasn't connected to. He's actually pretty well a scumbag. But the interesting thing with him is he would be the quote unquote perfect boyfriend. I mean, literally, I'm talking, in spades, cooked, cleaned, intimate, dance, singing, poetry, everything there was for 2 months and 28 days.
You timed it like it was.
And it's true. And then for 2 days, he would drink, smoke, call hookers or whatever. He'd have this 2 day of complete devastation. And then, we'd resurrect out of that. because he would always get caught because he was not really smart about it. And then back to that, 2 months and 28 days of
What a
perfection.
roller coaster.
And he would do this, and he asked me, he said, well, when I told him, I said, I can't do this. And he goes, but what about all the times I'm great? I mean, all the times I'm great. Doesn't it outweigh it? And I said something like this, and this is perfect. I think people should listen up. I said, if I walked up to you, I told him, and just kicked you in the testicles, just out of the blue, and you'd be going, what the heck are you doing? I'm like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I did that. I have no idea. And you'd have to hold me then because I was devastated by what I had done, and I'd be crying. And then, okay, all right, we're fine. And everything's going, and I'm perfect, and I'm wonderful, and everything's great. And then, 2 months, 28 days later, just like wham.
Well, and what's really important about what you're saying is that you're describing an abusive relationship.
Exactly. Right.
And it's just, I think, and this was true for me as well, and I see it in a lot of other women, is that if I'm not being punched in the face and I don't have black and blue marks, then I'm not in an abusive relationship.
Right.
And that's actually not true.
Right.
Right? I mean, there's verbal, emotional, mental abuse, and it happens both ways. I mean, men are abused by women,
yes.
and women are abused by men. And I was just reading a statistic that said that 80% of all people who are in abusive relationships will go back.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And here's my theory. And you and I are so synced up in what we think. I'm wondering how you're going to feel about this theory. But this came to me a while back that there are so few masculine men walking the planet anymore, so few warriors. And women definitely need that warrior male energy for the sexual polarity. Mm-hmm. But you know what? When those abusive men, and I hate to say this, you'll have to really hear me out so it doesn't sound wrong, but those abusive men have commitment. They actually are stepping up into a space of commitment. Yeah, they're beating the crap out of you, but they're making decisions and there's passion and things. It's wrong. It's not the right kind, but they are passionate, and they are usually, acting male dominant, all of these things that we're missing in most good men today. And so we need to help train men, which is part of what we're doing in learning Tantra, is helping men step up into the masculine that women so desperately need without the abuse and without the anger and without the hurting.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. There's no excuse ever for anyone to ever be abusive to anybody. No, that's just period.
Right.
And what you're talking about is absolutely true. And I see this all the time, and I've had to do this in my own relationship, my current relationship, is that there's a lot of women who actually have taken on the masculine in the relationship.
Yes, right.
And so they hold most of the masculine. They've actually lost their feminine. It's
exactly.
like, feminine who? What?
Oh, yeah. And so you got these, and now most males are trying to be your girlfriend. The watered down male, they're trying to be your girlfriend, and you're disgusted with them. It's like, buddy, I don't need a girlfriend. I need you to be the man. But he's like, dude, you are so much more of a man than I'm going to be right now. Mm-hmm. I can't get there. Josh is over here going, okay, men, stop talking and let him speak.
Even if the woman's the breadwinner, the man has to know how to pull himself up. He has to have a role model. He has to have the aptitude to suck it up and say what he wants and needs and be in integrity with the primal, the archetypical male, mm-hmm. as a good man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you are so right. And I think what's happened is that women, we want to be loved and we want that sensitivity from a man. And we also, and that's really good because for so long it's not been okay for men to be sensitive. And I still think in most mainstream, it's not okay.
Right.
But men, my husband is actually way more sensitive and has way more capability to give love than I do. I've learned so much about my feminine from him. And in our own relationship, what that caused, exactly what you said, is I was like, dude, hello, where's the testosterone?
Take me sometime already. What's going on?
I love that you're here, wheeler man, all great, but look, and I'm very masculine. And so and what I learned is that I so filled up the space in the relationship that there was nowhere for him to come in.
Yeah.
So I had to learn, and I've been on probably a 3-4 year journey of some deep exploration into the feminine.
Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts.
I do know about Mama Gina.
Nice.
I do. I actually studied with a woman named Arylo who teaches the deep feminine mysteries.
Nice.
And it's fabulous work. And
I'll have to read that.
Josh is going to read that.
Which one?
Deep
Feminine Mysteries.
She wrote something called the 13 Moon Oracle, and she's amazing work. And I think, what I find in all the female clients I've coached is that I've had to teach them how to reconnect with the feminine.
Yes. Well, because we've been taught a lot of the time that the feminine was weak. I grew up role modeling my dad. Mm-hmm. And, definitely can bring on that masculine energy, and then was always disappointed. I mean, I used to think it was cool when people told me I was more of a man than any man they knew.
I did too.
It's like, yeah.
I had all male friends. I mean, I had very few girlfriends.
Yeah, me too. And, and then it was really sad, though, of course, because, here I am in my relationships, basically emasculating most of the men I was with because they couldn't step up. Gary is telling me he wants a break, so we're going to... We're going to take a quick break, Christine. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Okay, sounds good.
Are you one of the 40 million sexless couples in the U.S.? Are you wondering why having sex leaves you feeling lonely? Are you suffering from the myths of sexual dysfunction? Do you know in your heart that there has to be more than what you're currently getting out of making love? To rid yourself of sexual ignorance, get more out of your lovemaking, and find out more about spiritual sexual connection, then you need to check out www.thetantrateacher.com to receive your free copy of the ebook called Secrets of the Tantra Teacher. Don't suffer another minute without the sexual loving and ecstatic bliss you were born to receive. Get to www.thetantrateacher.com right now. That's www.thetantrateacher.com.
ContactTalkRadio.com, making a difference. And leading the way.
They know what they're doing.
Is your sex life non-existent? Do sexual dysfunctions leave you soft? Is internet porn getting more than you are? Or are you paying more attention to porn than your partner? Have you tried talk therapy and it got you nowhere? You are not alone. You can be freed from sexual shame, guilt, and dissatisfaction. A visit to the Tantra Teacher is in order. Call now and mention you heard the Tantra Teacher on the radio and get a very special offer. Stop waiting for a miracle and call right now. 206-276-2735. Phone consultations or in person will get you the information you need to be successful in your love life. But you have to call now. 206-276-2735. Stop making excuses. Call the Tantra Teacher. 206-276-2735.
Hi, this is Dave Stewart from Eurythmics, and you're listening to Contact.
Now is your chance to be part of the show. Call 877-230-3062. Call in with your questions or thoughts and talk with the host and their guest. Again, that number is 877-230-3062.
To promote the number in it, because it reminds me of that time that one of my students was working on that word that I can't use, mastery. Oh, I can use ejaculation now, I think. Ejaculation mastery techniques, and that's one of the things where you go to like a 9.5 or a 9.8 of inevitability, but then you're supposed to back that off and learn how to have orgasm without the ejaculation. Anyway, I got the phone call. And it was him on the phone yelling, "I'm at a 9.5." And I'm thinking, what? Oh, got it. He's like, "Talk me down." So I'm like, breathe. I keep waiting for one of these days when I'm on the radio for one of my students to be calling in yelling that.
Talk about radio content.
So we are on the air with Christine we're talking about relationships, and we're talking about self-love, not to be confused with masturbation, but self-love. Hi, Christine. We're back.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, and we're loving our synergy. Christine and I, we're like soulmates here in our mission and what we believe in what's going on with relationships. So I'm having a lot of fun. And we also have Josh here, which is our newest member of Team Tantra, and Yeah, loving having him part of the group. Massage therapist.
Love being here.
He loves being
I'm
here.
just having a great time, and I am in love with myself. Life is great.
You can tell when people love themselves, right?
Well, it's almost like it's like an energy you can actually feel, I think, in people, and because it's not about narcissism or confidence. It's really about like they're okay in their own skin.
I would think I almost hesitate. Maybe a way to explain it to some people when they get weirded out or twisted up in the word of love would be acceptance.
It's a piece of loving yourself. I mean, I think loving yourself is first of all, like knowing yourself and actually being your most authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part of it is really accepting yourself. Absolutely. Like for who you are today, not tomorrow, not who you could have been or would have been or whatever, but who you are today. But then there's also, I think, a component of loving yourself that's about really living yourself. Like fully 100%, no apologizing.
I love
awesome.
that. Living yourself. I love that. I'm writing that down on my Facebook right now. We're talking about living yourself.
I started a movement called Madly in Love with Me. So if you go to madlyinlovewithme.com, it's an entire website that's dedicated to people saying yes to the journey of falling madly in love with themselves again and again and again.
Do we have
for the
T-shirts?
rest of their life. What's that?
Do we have T-shirts?
We have a necklace. So I actually created something called the Madly in Love with Me necklace.
Nice.
And it's something you can wear around your neck to remind you to love yourself every day. And if you go to the site, you can actually download a free self-love starter kit that has all kinds of great ideas, some of those zany ones, like, I love myself, those affirmations.
Right.
Things you can do with your girlfriends or boyfriends, whatever. And then every February 13th was just officially named Madly in Love with Me Day.
Oh, nice.
So
I like that. So we've got madlyinlovewithme.com. Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Let's say live yourself, madlyinlovewithme.com. Get there for free cool things. So there it is, popped right up for those.
And so there's actually something on there that actually says this is what loving yourself isn't, and this is what it is. And so actually I want people to take a challenge on to take the commitment to say yes to this self-love affair.
I love that.
Having an affair with myself.
Mm-hmm.
I like the sound of that.
I do too. Should we have affairs with ourselves and then each other?
Whatever floats your boat.
That's what makes it better, right?
If you get caught, it's all good.
Well, I think part of it is that the whole thing about loving yourself is that it's not just about yourself. It really is about being in relationship to other people.
Well, it's about connection to everything because loving yourself, and accepting yourself and living yourself and all of those means that you are actually present and aware and conscious. You have to be those things to get to that space. And if you're conscious and aware, then you get that you are connected. You get that you become an emissary of hope for the rest of humanity when you walk into a space of loving yourself and living yourself.
Because you just are inspiring because of who you are.
Right. Inspiration, that's, I used to call myself, when coaching, life coaching, first started coming out, I actually called myself an inspirer. And my whole thing was I want to inspire people to live this big, loud, life of a full expression.
It's so important because I think so many people are literally and figuratively dying to be themselves.
Dying to be themselves.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Absolutely. Felt that way.
Yeah?
Yeah, a number of months ago. Just didn't feel like I was living in full integrity with myself. Wasn't doing what I really was in love with to the degree that I'd forgot what I loved to do. And as I turned around and faced my own fire, faced my own sorrow of having lost myself, that's when the fire came up. That's when the passion for all the things I loved doing came about. And then the people that just naturally were around me sharing those experiences became my life. So I have so much more to share with anyone because I'm in love. I'm in love with life. I'm in love with me. I'm in love with the things I'm doing and remembering who I am.
That's a cool thing.
This is yummy. I mean, that's how that is. It's just yummy. I just like you eat that all up. I mean, and that's like, some people get all weirded out by that. They're like, oh, it's so woo woo, it's so this, it's so that, and they're like, what's woo woo about love? And we're so conditioned in this society to like focus on the negative and focus on the fear and have to like have our, image up and look so perfect and screw that. What's really important is love. And why should it be weird or woo-woo or, mamby-pamby to talk about love?
I like the word namby-pamby. That's one of my... Well, I think it's because basically people they just don't get it. They think of love as in a romantic fashion. That romantic love. And they also think of it as in that incense-burning, chanting space. And you know what? I have to say, I will say that, I don't want to live in one constant state. And I know you're going to agree with me about this. I mean, full expression isn't me living in a state of constant flatline love either. It is a full expression, the range of complete human capability, but the underlying, I think that's where people's objection comes in. They think, I'm not going to just be sitting there in my full lotus burning incense saying love, love, love. But that's not really what you're saying. What you're saying when you say loving yourself, being in a state of love, is actually being in full expression. It's like acknowledging when you're angry. It's living in that truth, acknowledging when you're lonely. Mm-hmm. When you're devastatingly lonely in the middle of some night because you're not connected right now to someone because you have disconnected from the world. I mean, that's authentic and that's real. And you can love yourself in that space.
Yeah, I mean, love, just like love and happiness, like real, true happiness, which I refer to as joy, is a state of existence.
Yeah.
It's not an emotion. So it's ridiculous to believe. I mean, this is a human experience. There will be pain. Suffering, optional.
Yeah. I like that. Suffering, optional, but there will be pain. Sometimes I like suffering, though, I like to kind of stir around in that and see what's up.
Yeah, it's like going to the dentist, right, and getting dental work done, and it hurts a little bit, but you keep sticking your tongue in it just because there's some weird perversion that you don't like the pain.
Yeah, it's that full expression of human experience. Let's see what that's all about.
Don't give me toothpicks when I've had Novocaine. It's a bad thing.
Oh, that's not any fun. But I think part of that is that craving for texture. Because most people are living in a very small comfort zone, they're living in a very small expression, that they look for experiences to rev them back up, whether that's adrenaline, medication, dramatic relationships, whatever, because they're not having their own experiences of difference and multidimension and bigger. You've got to live out loud. A lot of people are living very, very small.
Well, yeah, 50% of all people live within 50 miles of where they grew up.
Wow, you're kidding.
No, that's a large percentage. And most of those people, I think, there's reasons they stay because it's comfortable. It's why people stay in jobs for a long time that they should have left a long time ago, or relationships because it's comfortable. And so I think, whenever you're in any situation that you're feeling maybe, why am I in this situation? Write down a list of all the reasons to stay and all the reasons to go. And if your reasons for staying has the word comfort on there at all, go. Go.
That's the trump card.
Yeah, because I think what happens is that we believe that we're always in a state of creating more comfort. And people who live lives that are so fulfilled, that are happy, that have joy, that have life, they are uncomfortable a lot.
I'm
always jumping off some proverbial bridge and into the unknown.
Loving it. Yeah.
And so, there's this notion out there that I hear people talk about, and it makes me laugh because it's just ridiculous. And they talk about fearlessness, as if some people talk about it and it's like, well, you'll have no fear. And I'm like, oh no, you will have fear for the rest of your life. The difference between the people that have lives that are fantastic and are alive are the people that choose to step into the fear and face it, and then walk through it anyway.
Yeah, I know that people use the word fearless with me a lot because I look like I have this fearless life. And I will say that, I was a really wussy child. I was a completely sensitive, and what they call a wussy child, hypersensitive, just low pain threshold, the whole thing. My mom taught me that if I walked through that uncomfort and walked into the scary places, that there were really cool things on the other side. Mm-hmm. And I will say that, I definitely face fear, and fear comes up. But what I've learned to do is say, ooh, hi, fear. Loving you. What's going on? Let's take a dance and see what happens.
And saying it out loud, there's real power in saying, you know what, yeah, I am scared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do have some self-doubt. And for me, I'm like, I have no weakness. I have no weakness. I am Superwoman, right? It was a very freeing thing for me to be able to get to inside my own personality, to be able to say, I am afraid.
I can be vulnerable.
I can be vulnerable. And I think,
afraid.
a lot of times we look at people and we compare ourselves to people and think, oh, we could never get there. I used to compare myself to people like Oprah Winfrey and Barbara Walters. Why am I not Oprah already?
You're not, yeah.
And it does. And the analogy I use, it's like every time you compare yourself to somebody else or to something else or who you should have been, it's like biting a poison apple. And you literally poison your self-image of yourself and your self-care and your self-love. It's like you throw yourself into the self-love dumpster every time you compare yourself.
Nice. I'm really going to love reading your book because I am loving some of these words that you're using, the love dumpster.
Self-love dumpster. Like you're in there like rotten apples and stinky food and you're just feeling like, ugh. And so I tell everybody, and I've done this myself, go on a comparison diet and actually give up comparison so that every time you find yourself comparing yourself to somebody else or something else or some other time in your life, just stop and instead say, what's true right now? And find one thing to love about yourself right now.
Here's a fun thing to do, too. You can do. I've gone out and said to people, just walked up to random people saying, what's my sexiest attribute?
Ooh.
So what's my sexiest attribute, Josh?
Well.
For another time.
Yeah.
But I've walked up just random, hey, not asking, do you think I'm sexy? Mm-hmm. But what is my sexiest attribute? And that has been an amazing journey. And every once in a while I bust that out and walk around and say that. And it's quite fun. And, people, that's one of those things, oh my God, I could never do that. I could never walk up to somebody and just say that. And I'm like, really? I don't know. Give it a whirl.
Well, and that's where it goes to that place of vulnerability. And we have built ourselves as a society and as individuals as a society to protect ourselves. And we live, most of us, in a state of fear. And we don't know it until we know it, because then we've had something really awful happen to us. Usually that wakes us up and we're like, oh, wow, I was living a whole different life than I thought I was living. Yeah. And so before you get the 2x4, and this is why I wrote Choosing Me Before We, because I'm like, I don't want any other woman or man really to ever have to go through what I did. Yeah,
the 2x4, I've had lots of 2x4 experiences, and somehow, I don't know. We've got just a couple of minutes left here. Christine, give me the title, you got a website or anything, contact info, lay it all on me.
Absolutely. So the book is called Choosing Me Before We, Every Woman's Guide to Life and Love. You can get it on my website, which is www.mebeforewe.com. You can also get it at Amazon, Borders, etc. So Choosing Me Before We, the Every Woman's Guide to Life and Love. And then also make sure to check out madlyinlovewithme.com, because you can go there and download your free self-love starter kit and join the bandwagon for self-love. You get a whole world full of self-love.
We are so on that here at learningtantra.com. My entire team will be jumping on that. I have that written on my Facebook now, so all my thousands of friends will be seeing that. And I want to thank you very much for being on the show with us, and hope you enjoyed yourself, because it was definitely fun for us.
Oh, well, thank you. I had a great time. What a great way to spend Thursday evening.
I know it. And Josh, how did you feel about being on the radio today?
Oh, I loved it. Anytime I can share my voice and hear great talk. I mean, to be able to come and sit down, and this is my kitchen. Mm-hmm. To be able to sit down and have this, if it was a late night talk, this is what it would be about.
Well, and it's been great to have you on, too, just for me. Like, I think men and women, we have to talk about this stuff together, because we're all shifting, and together we're going to shift the planet, we're going to shift ourselves, and we're all still kind of trying to find our way.
Yep. Well, somebody already likes the link. They've popped up on Facebook to tell me that, so that's cool. I've got 1 minute left. I want to tell you that this weekend, learningtantra.com, if you go there and look under workshops, I've got my Tantra and Sexual Empowerment weekend going, and I have room for one more person. So if you call me and you're from the radio show in Seattle, I will give you a special deal.
Now, is this singles or is this couples?
Is everybody.
Anybody
singles,
can ride.
Couples, breathing. If you're breathing, you probably need to be doing this. That's for sure. Yeah, and if you're not breathing, we're going to make sure you are breathing by the time. And there's no nudity or sexual touching. It's an incredibly cool thing to do. Busy creating lots of product, bringing on lots of team members, 6 now on Team Tantra. Life is amazing, fabulous, great. And remember, you wake up in the morning, you get to choose how you're going to feel that day. And instead of being fine or not bad or hanging in there, I want you all to go out there, choose things like amazing, fabulous, fantastic. And remember, you're always sexy. Sometimes you're just even sexier. And we're out.
I like that.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.